No, cancel it.
We cannot, sir.
I'll start now.
1 minute, sir. Give me 1 minute.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So I'll start my presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this new series on cloud computing. In this series of webinars, I will be introducing the complete world of cloud computing in terms of topics. So before I start, I will be talking about this seminar. See, this seminar takes a topical approach. You know, cloud computing is a huge field, is a huge domain, and many activities, many things are happening in that. So coming out in terms of a topic is a better approach, so that I can take up a topic, cover it, and go to the next topic. So essentially, this will take a topical approach. The format of this webinar is like this. The whole idea behind this webinar is very simple. I have been teaching cloud computing for quite some time, nearly 5 years. And I would like to convert my face-to-face teaching into a webinar mode. So that is the idea. So for that, actually, tentatively, I come out with a format. So each topic will be covered in 15 minutes, approximately 15 minutes. For example, if I start with cloud computing meaning and definition, I approximately take some slides and make a 15-minute presentation. At the end of each session, there will be a 4-minute question-answer session. So at the end of each session, I will have a time dedicated for these questions. Attendees can use question Q&A that box within this. Actually, I already see one question. Okay, to send their questions. I will try to answer as many questions possible in the session. Okay, and if any questions are left out, then I'll be answering them on my blog called questionandanswersblog.com. Okay, so this is the summary. So my whole idea is to use this webinar as an effective teaching mechanism, and whatever that I have learned in teaching face-to-face teaching, I'll be trying to convert into a webinar mode. So the format will be in terms of presentation. I will have a 15 minutes presentation on a topic, followed by it's open for a question answer session, and attendees can actually post their questions. I can see the question box here. So then I will start answering. For example, Minal has already posted a question like where cloud computing concept can be applied in practical life. That actually, such things actually I will cover. Okay. About me, I actually teach cloud computing in an engineering college. I offered my first cloud computing course way back in 2010. For the last 6 years, I've been teaching this. And people who are interested actually look at this URL where actually my cloud computing course is actually hosted. And the entire course in those days actually, even currently, is actually done using whichever cloud computing resources are available. For example, I hosted a page on Blogspot, which became my cloud computing homepage. I was using Google Docs to create notes and PPTs and presentations. And I was actually using Google App Engine to implement a PaaS implementation project for my students. So this entire course was run on cloud computing platform. On the screen, actually, you can see this cloud computing course. And you look at this, actually, this whole page was actually my classroom, or so to say, cloud computing course homepage. On the left side, actually, you see the student resources like syllabus and question bank and so on and so forth. And all these are created using a cloud resource like Google Docs and all. In the middle, actually, you see one presentation on class number 8, which is called Software as a Service. This presentation, when somebody visits my website, actually, can actually see this presentation all the time. The student can access this directly whenever he wants it. So the whole point was this: I was trying to use cloud, and I wanted to teach cloud computing on the entire cloud platform. Thereafter, in 2013, I also started teaching this cloud computing course to another set of people, that is MTech, which is offered by an affiliated university here. Here also the entire course was conducted on cloud platform. In fact, we went further and also started using blog for insisting students to create their blogs and post their progress of their seminars and all. And you can see that here. So video MTech Cloud Computing Platform, and which actually I used, and you can see again the course objective of this, and you also see a lot of cloud computing resources being used. So that means it is completely cloud native course, and this is this experience that I will be sharing in this particular course. Okay, now let me start with cloud computing course, and before we go, we'll go for a poll. Okay, so Professor Sridhar will administer the poll, and we will conduct a poll, and thereby we'll come back to this. And the idea of this poll is to know the audience. For example, how many people are attending, what is their awareness about cloud computing, have they done a course already, or are they interested to do a course? All those things will be asked here. Sridhar, you can go ahead.
Shall I close it, sir?
Okay.
Shall I launch next one, sir?
Okay, so I'll proceed.
Yes, sir.
I'll proceed, okay?
Shall we launch the other ones, or we'll launch later, sir?
We can launch all 5 now only, and then we'll proceed. That's perfect.
Okay, sir.
Meanwhile, can I keep talking?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So there's one interesting question from Mr. Minal Shankar, who is asking a question like where cloud computing concept can be accepted in practical sessions. Okay. See, cloud computing, I want to tell you very happily that cloud computing is out and out a practical technology. So there is theory behind it, but most people can actually use it on day-to-day basis. So for example, look at this. As a cloud computing teacher, actually I'm using a blog, which is a cloud product. See, Blogger is a mechanism of publishing things on the net. So a blogger is something which anybody can use. Not only as teacher, actually if you are a writer, you can use that. And if you are a teacher, you can use that. Or if you're an institution, you can use it for publishing certain things. And at a higher and a serious level, see, for example, there is an option called platform as a service. And actually, if you can see actually here, here, okay. See, if you can see my cloud computing course, Mr. Minal, actually you can see on the left side, there are many cloud computing projects done by a student. So not only cloud computing can be used on day-to-day teaching for creating a blog or creating your presentation and sharing with the students, you can also ask a serious-minded students to do a lot many projects on the cloud computing. And secondly, actually, I can show you later. See, many of our actually the products which are needed for running. For example, we run an autonomous institution where actually we need some utilities to be done by students. For example, a particular search engine which actually searches all my students within the Facebook and gets me the information. All these things actually we have done. So the answer to your question is simple. Cloud computing is very practical and can be used for a couple of services, including building student projects and all. So cloud computing, as I told you, is a fundamental transformation power actually, which is happening in today's world. Okay. Before cloud computing came, actually computing was something which is very difficult to get, and it was not accessible to all. For example, if you need a lot of computing, like a superpower kind of a pound, actually you will be part of an ISRO company, I mean ISRO institution, or part of IISc and so on and so forth. But today cloud computing has actually democratized that one. So that is actually is happening. And attendees are encouraged to post their questions in the question box actually, so that I can answer them. We can keep watching them and keep the whole session interacting for each one of us.
Yes, sir. Polls are done. You can continue, sir.
I'll proceed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So where do I see poll results? Okay. Pardon?
In the poll sections, you have to open it, sir. If you want to
see. Okay, I've seen that actually. Okay. Okay. So the fifth question people have finished. The reason why you don't have to start a cloud computing course, they say 43% of the people lack syllabus, 36% lack book, 50% lack interest by students, 14% reluctant to colleagues and all. Okay, we'll take all these questions. So regarding the question like, have you studied cloud computing? About 33% of the audience says yes, and 67% say no. And certainly my presentation will be very helpful for you in this regard, because it will give you a basic introduction of the cloud computing. Okay. And second question is actually, the question was actually, how many people are interested in starting a cloud computing course? About 88% people say yes and 12% no. Fine, 88% is a huge number. And I will be helping you to conduct these courses, also to design if you are interested, and also help you regarding in terms of framing the syllabus and sharing the books regarding that one. So to the question like, see how many people, I mean how many students are doing a project is very interesting number. 63% of the students are doing project and 30%, 38% no. This is also a good number, because students today actually have a tendency, because they practically live in cloud environment, whether they are using Facebook or Google App Engine or any other things. Actually, much of them actually supported and actually enhanced by cloud computing, and this is a good tendency to this one actually. Okay, so let me start with this. So the first topic that I take is cloud computing, and I will be covering what is the meaning and definition of cloud computing. See, let me start with cloud computing. See, what cloud computing says is actually, cloud computing is a new paradigm for delivering and availing computing resources. So we know there are things called cloud computing resources like storage, networks, computing power, CPU and all. Cloud computing is a new mechanism or a new paradigm, and it's called a new paradigm because it changes the focus and the shift from in actually delivering this. We had some earlier older programs like mainframe computers, personal computers. They are all limited because they were in isolated mode. So what you should remember in this, actually it's a mechanism for delivering and availing. So delivering is actually for the people who actually provide cloud computing services like Google and others. The availing is for people like us who actually want to use it on day-to-day basis. So when you look at cloud computing, this is how it looks. Cloud computing is very simplified. It is a model for delivering computing resources from the internet to user. So key aspect here actually is the computing resources that you already learned, and internet is the second one. That means unless you have internet, you cannot use that. What it means is actually cloud computing is a network-based one. And on the picture actually you see something very interesting. So in the middle you have a cloud, and on the left side you have users, on the right side you have service providers or services. So this is essentially what the cloud computing is all about. So cloud computing is a mechanism where a user will come to a cloud and use an URL and to access that one. And similarly, the service provider also come to the net and use. So internet becomes actually the medium for meeting, or a place of meeting where a user would meet actually the producer. So now you look at that. If in this picture you don't see that user has a particular machine of his own, he doesn't own them. Okay. And similarly, cloud computing service provider doesn't know anything about the user except that when he accesses that. That means it can reach any location and anyone. So this is what this. So cloud computing resources would mean that there are two set of cloud computing resources that you will get. So whenever you think of a computer system, when you dissect it, you will find three distinct things. One, the hardware, which is the physical machine like a processor and all. And above that, actually, you can install an operating system and create an environment that's called platform. For example, Windows platform is different, Linux platform is different, Apple Mac is different. And the software. Software is, as you know, is an utility which is created to do a particular thing. For example, Microsoft Word is a utility or a software application software. Okay. So what cloud computing gives is computing resources. Essentially, it gives you hardware, platform, and software, and also any services built around this and above this. Okay, look at this picture. So when I talk about cloud computing resources, I can get a network. That means you can go to a cloud computing service provider and say, I want to run a lab and I don't have enough number of computers. You can say like, see, I want a network consisting of 25 or 30 nodes, which particular specification, Linux installed on them. So this is also available as a service on cloud computing. Servers, for example, you have enough number of nodes or enough number of machines in your college, but you are lacking a server, for example, a Windows server. That also you can go and ask the service provider and he will give you. You have machines, you have servers, but you are running short of storage space. For example, there is an examination, there is an event, and there is an archive data that is to be converted for whatever the reason, and you need a lot of storage spaces. That also is given by cloud computing service providers. And an application. Application is actually, for example, suppose you want to develop or have an attendance application to implement in your college, and if you think that you don't have a know-how or ability to develop an application, a cloud-based application is also available for that. Service is anything, for example, the conversion of currency from dollar to rupees, that is also service, or finding a distance between two places is also service. Okay. So what cloud computing gives is the range of services which I have enlisted you. This is in general perspective, but if you are looking from an individual perspective, what cloud computing gives is what is known as a cloud application. And look at this, there are many implications of this picture. For example, in the middle you have a cloud. So at the top you have a document. That means there are services available like Google Docs and all, which will allow you to create documents like word processor, MS Word. So that means you don't have to buy them and you have to own them or install them. You can directly use them. And what you also should remember is actually, it is the same cloud which can get connected to your smartphone on the left side. It is the same actually which can connect it to your laptop, and it is the same one which can get connected to your tablet and also to the desktop. So cloud computing is very universal in its reach. It doesn't say that I want a Windows machine desktop to operate on. I want a particular server to operate on. It is very agnostic to any machine or any operating system. Cloud computing is very new because it overcomes the need for buying resources, instead makes them accessible free or rental basis. So one of the fundamental difference between the existing technology which was existing before cloud computing came and actually what is happening in cloud platform today is actually you don't have to buy, own and maintain any software or any resource. For example, you want a storage, you are not buying a hard disk, you are buying a service. Somebody will have a hard disk and all that you will get a connection to store that. And this is a fundamental thing. For example, I showed you in earlier stages actually. See, if I wanted to establish my own web page the days before cloud computing, then I should have gone to my college authorities, asked for this space, then established a website, then put my data content, and those also things must have stored in my college server and all. But now cloud has come, actually it can be done free of cost and without any hassles. So this is a fundamental difference between the traditional models of computing and cloud computing. Cloud computing allows you to use resources without buying them or without owning them. What does it mean? Here is the clearest example. You can read for yourself. So in the previous days before cloud computing came, if you want to use Microsoft Word, you have to pay some amount like $3,000, $300, or if in India if you are buying, then it is 3,000 rupees. Okay, and that means now a new model has come, the cloud computing, where you rent word processor. For example, you can say, I want to use cloud computing, MS Word for only 6 months. Why do I pay it for $300? I can use it for 6 months because I'm doing a research and preparing my thesis. Okay, so you would not install that because you don't buy it, and you actually directly access from the internet, so that actually you don't have to maintain it. See, one of the hardest part in any software life cycle, as you probably know, that I have a document which is created in Microsoft 2008, and when I go to somebody who actually a lower version of 2003, they are not compatible. But that kind of a compatibility question doesn't exist in cloud computing. In cloud computing, everything is updated, and there is only one version that any user and every user is using. And secondly and thirdly, cloud computing is a liberator. Cloud computing liberates user from the ownership, maintenance, upgrade, and even the machine. That means you don't have to carry your machine anyway. You can actually access the resources, including storage of the devices and all, anywhere, and you can go on. So the cloud computing actually liberates user from actually the details of maintaining a machine or having the enough resources. It just say, come to cloud computing, come to our service and start using. Your focus is only on consumption, nothing else. For example, all the documents that I have created, I didn't bother check whether there is enough space on my hard disk to do that because I was using a cloud computing service provider. Look at this. Today, this is a picture of my classroom where actually I teach cloud computing course. Look at this, all the students. So the installation, the PowerPoint presentation or the presentation that I have made, I have used Google Doc, and all my students are actually seeing it on their machines. And the beauty of this is actually no student have to follow me very strictly, because he can go to any of his slides and he can take any much of time to understand that slide. Suppose this was to happen in a traditional PowerPoint class where actually my presentation is loaded only on my machine, this wouldn't have happened. So this is a kind of a liberation that I am talking. Secondly, the PowerPoint, the presentation software itself given by Google is free of cost. It can be accessed from anywhere. Today, now in this picture, actually I'm accessing from the lab. My students are also accessing from the machines which are given in the lab. But when they go back home, they can actually take their laptop and actually start using that. So this is a very fundamental aspect of cloud computing. It simply liberates you either from buying it, using it, sharing it. Even sharing is very simple. See, in a traditional mode, if you want to share your presentation with your students, all that you have to do is to give a pen drive and ask them to share, or to load it on your local network. That is also not needed. Just give a URL and Wonders will start working. People say cloud computing is not new. Actually, it is not new in terms of the technology it actually uses. For example, virtualization is old. It is as old as 45 years old. Networks existed 1960s and all. But what is new is the way in which actually cloud computing combines all of them. So that is one of the beautiful things that is cloud computing there. So it uses virtualization, it uses networks in such a fashion, and in actually there is a name this called innovation. So cloud computing is not new, but is innovation, because existing technologies they are used to produce a new result. And secondly, it is democratic. See, before cloud computing came, as I told you earlier, actually suppose your research needs a lot of computing power, like which is equivalent to about a supercomputer kind of a thing, then you got to be an employee of ISRO or NASA, or you must be working in Cray Computer System or in ISC Institute of Science or any other reputed institute. But now cloud computing has actually liberated that. All that you have to do is you go to Amazon or any other service provider and say, this is the power I want. That means they will give that number of processors again. And if this is the storage that you want, they will give you this. So cloud computing has made it very democratic. That means you just get in and start your work anywhere, anyone, any place. Look at this, another picture that I am showing you. Here actually I am making a presentation to about 400 students in one of the colleges in Coimbatore. And you know, I have not shared my presentation. Everybody is accessing only cloud basis, and I don't care because if the number more and people become, actually I don't care, because automatically cloud has a facility called scalability. 10 students also it will answer, supply, 100 students also it will supply. You just imagine, can there be any technology which can give this kind of a liberty for a faculty as well as for a student? Okay, he can download that, he can share that, everything he can do. And this is another beauty of cloud computing. So let me see, any questions are there in the question box? There are no more questions. Actually, I encourage people to put questions on the question box, and that's so that I can answer. So only questions that have been asked so far, actually, can cloud computing be used practical by Minal Shankar? And the answer is actually yes. As I showed you in the previous examples, I have been extensively using cloud computing through my webinars, seminars and all, and have not paid a pie to that. My students have been benefiting from that because they can access from anywhere, and I can scale up, whether it's a seminar for 20 students like the earlier one, or 400 students, the later one I showed you. Cloud computing can simply scale up without charging you much. So now that actually I have told you about the main features of cloud computing, now it's the time to make a definition of cloud computing. Cloud computing definition is actually difficult to get because cloud computing is actually a combination of many technologies. So depending on your background, people will define cloud computing. People coming from the virtualization field define cloud computing a different way. People coming from distributed computing, they define it in a different way, and so on. There are differences, but these differences are only view differences. Actually, actual difference is nothing, because it's all amalgamation of a couple of technologies to create a unique configuration so people can use it. So what I do actually, instead of actually defining cloud computing to begin with, so I will actually define the elements of that and finally combine them together. So cloud computing is a model. I know, you see, in today's world, in real world, whenever you want to handle, we have to develop a model. Okay, models are abstractions of real world. For example, when I want to handle all the entities of data and all in this world, I have a relational data model. So that actually helps me to capture the information about real entities. Similarly, we have OSI model. Suppose we are trying to abstract the network phenomenon, then we have this OSI model where there are 7 layers. Similarly, cloud computing is a model which actually connects two things. One is user, one is producer. Okay, producer will come to internet and he will get connected to the user. Similarly, user will come. So cloud computing is a model where actually cloud computing resources are delivered to user using an internet. So there are 3 elements in this model: a user, internet, and the producer. Cloud computing is a model for network access. Remember, this is a very key term in cloud computing. If you don't have network, then you don't have cloud computing. It could be internet or not, because there are networks called private networks where cloud computing principles are used. But network is essential. Without network, you cannot think of a cloud computing mechanism, because that is the whole idea, is to share resources across the network. And it is an enabler. So cloud computing model is ubiquitous. That means it is available everywhere, whether it is through your cell device, whether it's your desktop, whether through your railway station networks and all. So it's ubiquitous. It's something like this, God is omnipresent. But we may not be sure about God, but computing is all ubiquitous. Wherever you go, it will follow you like the network connectivity. And it is convenient. So convenient is another thing. For example, in the traditional computing, for example, if you want to start using a computer, then you got to go to a computer center, boot that system, keep it on, then maintain and start using. But today it is not possible. I mean, it's not required. You just go to a cyber center, pay 10 rupees for half an hour, everything is ready. All that you have to do is to log in, do your work, and come back to home. So it is very convenient. Another way to explain the convenience is very simple. So in the traditional banking, actually, as you can see, you have to go to bank and write a check or a voucher, the withdrawal slip, give money and collect money. So in ATM, that is not there. So ATM is comparatively convenient than the other one. Okay, and it is a shared pool. So in cloud computing, there is nothing which you own, because ownership is not given to you. So then, if ownership is not given, how are you using? So that is what is called actually is a shared pool. So for example, whether you go to your college or somewhere else, there are something called parking lots. So no parking slot is actually booked for anybody or reserved for anybody. Whoever comes first will use it, and whenever he goes, he will actually clear that. That means as long as your vehicle is standing there, it belongs to you. Something similar happens in cloud computing. What happens is resources are actually shared, that means grouped together, and they are given to a user. Whenever he comes, whenever he is consuming, it is given to him. The moment he goes out, it will be withdrawn. Withdrawn in the sense actually it will be given to somebody else. It's something like, see, cyber in a computer in a cyber center. If you are paying 10 rupees, you will be allowed to work for 10 hours, half an hour. After that, it goes to another user. So that's something. And another example of sharing is actually library, college library, where actually books are not owned by the students. They are borrowed and returned. Similarly, in cloud computing, resources are always shared. And this is the second principle which goes against the traditional computing, where actually you own. You say, this is my machine, this is my hard disk, this is my software. And these are actually configurable. See, in the traditional computing world, actually we had a laptop which is for an individual, desktop for the officers, server for the college. So that means depending on your requirement, there was difference in the sizes. But in cloud computing, that size is not there. There is one size fits all, meaning you can start small, become bigger, much bigger, and while you are becoming bigger, it will go on meeting your requirements. For example, you can start a project on your laptop thinking that it needs only that much power, but then you can move up to a server level resources and then go on. So as you can see in this picture, actually, it is the same pieces of, of a child's play, which actually configure into different patterns. Similarly, you can actually buy a storage, buy a processor, buy other resources and combine them to meet your specific requirement. So configurability is an ability of cloud computing to see your requirement and supply them in a unified fashion. And the rapid provision. So what it actually means is, see, for example, suppose you are trying to download some picture into your laptop. Okay, then you realize that there is not enough memory on that. So alternative you have is either you have to delete an existing one or add additional hard disk or a store. But to do that, you have to buy it, and it takes a couple of times. Similarly, in an organization, suppose some project is running and it needs a lot of storage, and suppose they run short of 2 MB or 20 MB, that means they have to indent from the department, then they have to buy and give, and this normally takes a lot of time. Whereas in cloud computing, it is a rapid provision. How does it actually happen? The moment you ask for that and you just indent, okay, it will come. It is like, see, you are charging your mobile. See, suppose your charges of your mobile currency is over, then all that you have to do is actually send a message or go to a provider, pay the money, and within no seconds you will get an email saying, message saying that you have been currency put out. Similarly, if you are a user of a Tata Sky TV, then you know when you run short, all that you have to do, you send a message and you will get it. So rapid provisioning is like rapid police forces. Okay, whenever there is a kind of a disturbance and all, government will send rapid action force, right? Similarly, this is very rapid. That means immediately it will be given to you. And most of the activities here actually are managed by software. What it actually means this, okay, there is no manual intervention. On the left side on the picture, you actually see that it's a bank scenario where actually people come, stand in a queue, apply for, do the transaction and go back. On the right side, you see somebody, in this case actually a dog, coming to ATM and borrowing money. Okay, so in the right side actually there is no human intervention in this activity. They come, they swipe card and take money. So most of the activities on cloud computing are like this. That means when you start using cloud computing, there won't be a human agency sitting behind and monitoring your activity, or actually helping you. So with all these elements, it is time to define cloud computing. So cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access. I told you what is ubiquitous. It's everywhere available. That means in every location and for every device. It is convenient. That means it is as convenient as borrowing money from ATM. On-demand. That means it will come whenever you want it. Access to a shared pool. That means I told you nothing belongs to one user because there is nothing like ownership. Okay, and of configurable, that means depending on your need. For example, if you are a student, then I can give you resources which meets your requirement. If you are a researcher, then I give you a different combination. That's called configurable resources that can be rapidly provisioned. That means you want it now, it can be done as fast as recharging your currency or your mobile, and can be released also. For example, once you don't want that, it can be released back. Something like I told you, you go and park your vehicle, and the moment your stay is over, you come back. So that time the parking lot space is released back to another user. Okay, without any much human effort. So now is the interaction time. Any questions you can ask now? Okay. Mr. Shobha Shankar has asked me a question like, what are the different ways in which cloud computing can be used for effective teaching? Okay. So as I told you in my earlier slides that I have been using cloud computing for many teaching purposes. And actually, for example, you can create a course homepage using a blog. Okay. And you can use Google Docs to create your notes, presentation, and share with the students. Thirdly, you can use at a higher level services like Google App Engine to encourage your student to a project. Apart from that, actually, you can do many things. For example, if you are running a quiz program, then you can use a Google spreadsheet to do that. Or if you are conducting online test and all, then you can use Google Forms to collect information and conduct test. It is also possible to create a test in Google Sheet using what is known as Excel sheet and its formula. Okay. And probably in few days time, actually, I will be making a presentation on using web tools in teaching and learning. I have been doing about 5-6 presentations on that I will do, Shobha Shankar. And the question comes like Kaushik Gajera is asking me a question, how old is cloud computing? See, the idea of cloud computing is very old. It is 60 years old because long back in 1950s when mainframe came into existence, then only people thought that one day cloud computing will become a requirement as like electricity, and the way electricity is through networks, so cloud computing will also be supplied through that network. But you know, there is normally a time that takes between you dream and you realize that. So cloud computing as an idea existed for quite some time, nearly 60 years, but it was realized only in the last 10 or 15 years at a public level. But cloud computing was realized within an organization for nearly about 15 to 20 years before that. Okay. So this is the answer to Kaushik Gajera. So any other questions? So then I will move on to the next one. Next topic. So any left out question? In fact, there are no left out questions. I have answered all questions from Shankar, Shobha Shankar and Kaushik. And in case there are any questions left out, I will certainly answer them. I will just check out again. Are there any questions? Yeah, Santosh Kumar Sahu is asking a question like, sir, how cloud computing environment can help computer lab in any engineering college? Any example? Yes. See, Mr. Santosh, so if you are doing any projects on distributed computing and all, okay, or operating system kind of a thing, today now resources are available. For example, something called there are G labs and even Skylab for computations and all, and even Indian government through this IITs actually has created many projects and where actually you can actually simulate a computing environment by getting connected to internet. Okay, so that means assume that you don't have a C compiler in your lab. So there are services available on the internet which will give you a C compiler so that students can do this, run those C programs. Similarly, if you are having a math lab or, for example, data structure lab, there are environments which are available. The list of such things I can either send you over there, or you can send me an email ID. I will do that one for you. So any other questions? Okay, the remaining questions I will try to answer here if there are no questions at this point in time. Okay, now we will go to the characteristic of cloud computing. Now that I have defined cloud computing as a mechanism of connecting a user through an internet and supplying his services on demand, okay, ubiquitously, okay, and we're using a pooled resources. Now I'll go to the characteristic of cloud computing. Okay. The characteristics of cloud computing, what makes cloud computing differentiate from the others? So it's an on-demand self-service, broadband network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and measured service. Many of things actually have a reputation because they are part of the definition itself. But again, I will make one more clear. Okay. Look at this. On-demand self-service refers to the service provided by the cloud computing vendors that enables the provider to resources to demand whenever they are required. That means there is no working hours for ATM. That means you can borrow money 24/7, right? Similarly, in cloud computing, resources are not limited of they are not limited by working hours, not like a traditional bank or a computer lab that we have in our college where it is closed after 5 o'clock or it is closed on Sundays. That kind of a thing is not there. It's on demand. That means whenever you want, wherever you want, it is given. So this is one of the first quality of cloud computing, on demand. And a self-service, that means when you go to an ATM, you don't find an agent or a person waiting for you. You just go swipe and come back. So this is called self-service. So these are the two qualities. Whenever you go to cloud computing, it is available all the time and you can serve yourself. Broadband network access. What it actually means is, actually earlier all technologies were available for only one network. For example, if you are having a phone, then it's available only for phone network. Or if you are using a TV, and the programs are available only on TV. Okay, and if you have a radio, then radio programs are available only on radio. But what is cloud computing has done is, actually it has connected all these devices. For example, it is possible to see a TV program on your computer. Similarly, you can see a radio program played on your computer. Okay, so this is called a broadband network, which is actually available. And there are also terms called connected TV, where actually people are trying to connect the content of a event directly to be streamed onto your machines. And this I told you, resource pooling. See, since the demands in cloud computing can go up and high, okay, what people do is, actually they don't depend on one resource, they actually pooled up. That means these companies like Google and all, they have something called data centers, which have a huge investment in terms idle, and minimizing the risk to user. That means instead of buying 10 items, if you can buy 5 items and share among 10 people, then actually that would not only reduce the cost, it also reduces the risk, because if you have 10 machines, then you have to maintain those 10 machines. Rapid elasticity is another thing. See what actually happens. I told you in the picture, the earlier one, actually I was teaching a course for 20 students. That was sufficient enough. Then I went to Coimbatore and I was asked to teach for 400 students. Then actually I was not finding any difficulty, because the cloud computing was taking care of that. No matter whether it's 400 students or another 50 students, doesn't take. So this quality of cloud computing, which will help you to grow as and when you grow, and to shrink whenever you come back, is actually called rapid elasticity. If you can see a picture here, like see, it is pumping air to a balloon. So you can make this balloon as big as possible before it gets burst, and you can anytime actually you can release that air and make it shrink. So this quality in cloud computing is very important, for a simple reason that for a teacher like me, it can help me to conduct a class for 400 people. But if you are an entrepreneur, and if your project becomes very successful in the market, then you can always indent for more resources very rapidly and grow according to that one. Or if for some reason your product becomes a failure, you can return all those resources back to the company and keep quiet. And finally, it's a measured service. What it actually means is, cloud computing is a very transparent mechanism. There is no hidden thing behind you. So if you are using a storage device, it will always keep telling you that this 20 GB you have bought, already 18 GB is already stored, used by you. Similarly, if you are using a bandwidth, then it will tell you this is the bandwidth that you are using. So in order to do that, they have what is known as a measured service. That means the moment you log into Gmail, it says you have been active on for 7 minutes. That means what it actually means is, every activity is monitored, every resource consumption is monitored, so that it can be informative for both you and the others. For example, if your consumption is going at a higher rate, then this transparency, this measured service will tell you that, see, your requirements are going like this, and if this rate probably you need another hard disk or another 20 GB next month, then actually you can buy or you can indent for it. So measured service is like buying electricity. Like, on the right side you can see a picture where every time some wattage is used or some calorie, unit of current is used, that is actually indicated in the meter, so that you can control that. If you think that you are spending too much on electricity, then actually you can control, because some metering is actually showing you the activity. In addition to that, it has some other general characteristics. Reduced cost, because cloud computing takes away the requirement of ownership. You can actually have to pay less for that. You are paying only for the rental. See, for example, suppose I want to travel from Dharwad to Mumbai, and if I am owning my car now, that the car needs an investment, then I have to put petrol and go. But if I am owning a taxi, then I have to only pay the rental. So because the model is used, cloud computing will normally cost you less. Outsourced management. So when you go by a taxi, the maintenance is not yours. That means whether the tires are good enough, whether enough petrol or not, whether what is the condition of the engine. So similarly, cloud computing gives you a scope where actually except the concentrated activity that you are doing. For example, if you are doing a research, only that you are focusing. All other activities you are outsourcing. So outsourcing is a process where actually unnecessary and unproductive activities can be given to somebody else, and you focus on that. Reliability. Reliability, probably you have noticed, if you have a laptop, if you have done a project on your hard disk, I mean on a laptop machine or a desktop machine, whenever you need to show a demonstration and all, machine will go down often. Or whenever you want to show a particular music or a particular picture, you may many times you notice that your machine is not reading your pen drive and all. So that kind of unreliability is not there in cloud computing. Cloud computing is always reliable. 99% of the time, actually, it is reliable. In fact, the presentation that I am showing you today is actually made 10 years back when I started using Google Docs in 2005. Since then, I must have made about 300 or 400 presentations. Never ever cloud computing told me, Ravindra, I cannot open your file today. So that kind of a reliability is given by it. And it's called multi-tenancy. Multi-tenancy is a feature that I will cover later, in which actually one application, one server can meet the requirement of a couple of people. See, in a traditional computing, suppose you want 10 machines to use Microsoft Word, then you have to install all of them. Whereas in cloud computing, it is not that. One application instance will be running on Google server or any service provider server, then you can start using that one. So again, interaction time, any questions you can ask. I'll also open question box here. See, what are the potential applications of cloud computing? Mr. Vijay Kumar is asking this. Okay, so Mr. Vijay Kumar, see, in cloud computing, applications are limited only by imagination. That means, so cloud computing, for example, Facebook is an application of cloud computing. Google search engine is an application of cloud computing. Okay, and Amazon is actually application of cloud computing. So cloud, it is, in fact, it is told that cloud computing is a solution in search of a problem. No matter what problem you give, it will try to solve you. For example, Indian government has an ambitious project of this Aadhaar card, which will identify every Indian citizen, right? So that is actually completely hosted on a cloud platform. Okay, so what it actually means is whether you are doing a small student project, cloud computing can help you a lot. Suppose you are building a system for your institution in which you don't want to buy additional software, hardware and all, then cloud computing format will help you to develop, deploy and run those applications for that. Or if you are a government agency like Indian government, Aadhaar card, it will help you, I mean, development application. Even the people are thinking about building election applications over the cloud computing for the next elections and all. Similarly, if you are in a scientific organization like ISRO and all, much of the data which is collected by the satellites and all actually processed using cloud computing resources. So that means there is no limit on what cloud computing can help you. If you can see my website which has shown you, you can see about 20 or 25 projects done by our students over a period using cloud computing resources. So the whole summary is that cloud computing is a resource which challenges you for a particular application. If you think an application, cloud computing will certainly help you do that. Okay. Okay, there's another question by Mr. Kaushik Gajera. What RDBMS we can use on cloud computing? See, cloud computing, I told you, is a totally different platform. So, frankly speaking, relational databases will not work on cloud computing. Okay. So actually, in fact, relational databases are worked on what is known as SQL, that's SQL language, right? So you have a query language. In cloud computing, this doesn't work. In fact, there is something called NoSQL. That means we don't have a horizontal tables in cloud computing databases. We have columnar data tables. So probably I will take this one session sometime later. But you must know the difference at this point that the traditional relational database is not suitable for cloud computing. You got to restructure it in a different way. And that actually uses a different approach altogether. And for example, Google has built its own something called Google File System, GFS, which is totally distinct. Similarly, Oracle has come out with its own database system. So traditional RDBMS will not work there. You have to take a different approach, including something called NoSQL. Probably I will be covering that session sometime later. Okay. Another question by Kaushik Gajera is, how can we connect multiple devices on a cloud application? See, you don't actually connect. What actually happens is actually, whenever actually you get connected to a cloud computing, so there will be an interface question. For example, it will ask, are you connecting using your mobile? And mobile version is given to you. Then if you are connecting through a laptop, then it will identify that the connecting device is a laptop, and that version is given to you. So there are different views given by this, and this actually is achieved what is known as actually virtualization technology. See, for example, say suppose you have a bank account, you can go to bank physically and take money, and similarly you can go to ATM and borrow your money, and you can also do it internet banking. So it doesn't mean that you have 3 different accounts. You have one physical account, but you have 3 different phases or 3 points where you can actually borrow or conduct transaction. So these 3 different things of a same account is actually achieved through what is known as virtualization. Similarly, there is how many service providers cloud computing? Okay, this is the question. The next question is actually by how many service provider are cloud computing? See, I told you, since cloud computing is left to the imagination, there are thousands of application services available. But if you're talking about very well-known cloud computing service providers, yeah, Google is one, which will supply you platform as a service, storage as a service, everything. Microsoft is another one, Amazon is another one, and so on and so forth. Okay, in India, even BSNL is also offering cloud computing services. So these are the different questions which were asked today, and I have tried to answer them. Okay, and if there are any questions left out, I will try to answer them. And most of these questions also I will try to answer them on the session. Okay, so with this actually I come to the end of my presentation today. So the next topic I will take in the next session, next week sometime later. Any more questions? So I thank you, Mr. Kaushik, Santosh, Vijay, and what is, okay, Kaushik has asked one more question. What is the elastic in AWS? Okay, see, cloud computing gives you 3 different services. One is computing, that means power to process your data, computing power, and storage, and also networks, and so on. So software as a service. Okay, so now you have to have a traditional name, I mean commercial name for this. Amazon has called EC2, that means elastic cloud computing. So what it actually means is the word elastic is used to say that it can grow without any problem. Like see, elastic dresses are things actually they can fit different bodies of different sizes. Similarly, what this elastic computer is, you start with a requirement of a one processor, and if you want to expand or grow further, an additional is given. So after going for second, consuming the second, you can go for the third one. Similarly, you can go on. So this, without breaking, you can go on adding and removing them, and that is what is called elastic in cloud computing in Amazon. So Amazon is one of the service providers in cloud computing arena, and they give you computing power, and their traditional name is called EC2, elastic cloud computing. Any other questions, sir? Okay, so there is another question by Kshitij Saxena, who says cloud computing, what kind of regulations govern safety in India of data? Okay, see, we had this IT Information Technology Act in 2001 and 2003. So much of the things which are there in the cloud computing, in that area actually apply for cloud computing, and cloud computing security and privacy is a big thing. So there are norms which applies to each country and each location, each company and all. One of the things about cloud computing is the service providers like Google and all, they have data centers elsewhere, not in India. So depending on the conditions and terms of the deal, actually, sometimes they are required to store data within a country. For example, if you are operating a cloud service in Europe, the restriction says that the data of all the patients or of the citizens of Europe must be stored in cloud, in Europe itself. That kind of restrictions are not there in India. In fact, Google doesn't have a data center in India, and our data is stored elsewhere in the world. So very specific to your condition, government is building rules and regulations for this. But as of now, whatever was available in the Information Technology Act will apply here. And the second question is Mr. Manjit. Okay, can cloud computing able to provide any application I request? The answer is yes. Suppose somebody has already developed that application, then terms and conditions apply. For example, somebody would offer you free of cost, somebody will offer you at a payment basis. Okay, but 99% of the times you will get the service that you want. It's unlikely that you think of a service which is not already designed available. It's only a question of looking out for and searching that one. The another question asked by Sheetal Thanke, how we can use cloud computing for library management. Okay, this is also a big question. I will try to handle it different way. See, now actually people are going away from physical collections to digital collections. So there are cloud computing resources which are available to manage this. For example, traditionally you want to buy a software and swipe your card by digital means and all, then you have to maintain the access number and stock verification and all. So now people are moving away from digital description and digitalization, and I can cover this in another session. But what you have to know is cloud computing has lot many resources available and things available for a library management software, situation. Any other questions, sir? Dear sir, how many sessions you are going to be engaging? Actually, I don't have an exact number, but it could be anything between 15 to 25 sessions over the next few months. Rupa Reddy is asking, dear sir, how many sessions you will be engaging? I will be engaging anything between 15 to 25 sessions, subject to permission from IUCEE and all. Okay, Snehal Sheetal thanks is actually thank you, sir. Thank you very much, Sheetal. And Kaushik, what is as you pay go? Okay, what you as you pay goes. There's another question from Kaushik Gajera. So there is cloud computing uses a term called as you may pay as you go. What it actually means this: you don't make an upfront investment. For example, suppose you are a researcher and your research needs a lot of data analysis and you have to store data. So the data collection happens over a period of time. That means you start collecting data in the month of January, February, March, and all. By the end of the year, say by the end of June, then you need say 20 GB of space to store the data. But in the month of January, all that you need 1 GB, right? So what cloud computing says this: now you buy only 1 GB and use that one. If you exceed, then you take the second GB. So as long as you are using for the first GB, then we are not charging for the 20 GB. We are charging only for whatever that is consumed. Okay, that means as and when you move on, and as and your requirement grow up, and as and when you supply your resources, we will give you the charging bill for you. So that means as your consumption goes, we will ask you to pay. It's something like our mobile currency, as and when you send a message, you will be detected that one. So that is how it is. Then another question is there, okay. Kaushik Gajera also thanks, and thank you Gajera. I think the time has come to end the session. And hello Sridhar, anything else?
No sir.
So thank you very much for this session. I will also continue the session in the future, and if anybody has any suggestions to make, please make them. Okay, you can send your your suggestions and all to this, and also to questions, and I will try to answer your questions as and when possible. Hope you enjoyed my session, and also the new approach that I am taking. Hopefully you will come back to my following session. Also tell your other colleagues who are interested in cloud computing and either to teach or to use on day-to-day basis and all. Then I can try to answer your question as much as possible.